What's up, Inkie peeps? It's Adele from Inkie Quill, and today I kind of think you can call this a DIY embellishment video because technically washi type tape is an embellishment. So we're making some. It's not washi tape, but I'm calling it washi tape because it's serving the same purpose for it. It's decorative tape, and we're having it a bit of fun, and this is a great way to make maybe some tape that you don't have colors of, or if you have a specific project that you need something to match to, it's really handy, or just if you want to have a bit of painty fun and use up some of your supplies. So one tip I would do is I used masking tape for this, and I bought the cheap stuff. I'm going to be honest. There were two brands available. One was a named brand that I know, and the other one was less than half price, and I bought the cheap one. And I wish I'd bought the named brand because the adhesive quality of this masking tape is zero. As you can see on the sides there, it's already curling up at the edges. So I would suggest buying a decent masking tape rather than the $2 stuff. So I grabbed some acrylic paint. I'm just using a range of really cheap paints that I have got at local craft stores, and I sploshed down some colours in a variegated way. One tip is to, when you line the masking tape strips, I did this on my messy mat, but you could do this on some greaseproof paper, baking paper, if you have like a plastic laminate surface, anything that you'd be able to peel them off. Again, I wouldn't put it straight onto like cardboard or paper, just peel them off something that's kind of got a plasticky, slippery surface that you can peel the tape back off. So I did some painty splotches, and then I grabbed a bit of bubble wrap, and I've been really loving using bubble wrap lately. It's such an easy way to get a real textured look to your page or to your projects without having to deal with 3D features like modeling paste. It looks like it's made with modeling paste, but it's completely flat. Then I grabbed a stencil. This one I don't know the brand of, but I don't think I've used it before, and I wanted to use this stencil because it had a small stencil design. I thought it would be good for the tape if there was a small pattern on it, rather than a really large one that you probably wouldn't be able to see as well. I lined all of my strips of masking tape up right next to each other. I think there's like maybe a millimeter gap between them, and that's really handy because you can overlap your stenciling throughout the different strips of tape, and you don't have to worry about doing each piece of tape individually. So then I grabbed another stencil. Once again, it's got a teeny tiny pattern, and I'm using just a makeup sponge. And the way I've had a lot of questions about stenciling and how to get the best results, and my tip is to have barely any paint on your sponge. I really enjoy using this Heidi Swap turquoise messy mat because I can kind of dab the paint out a little bit and make sure that there's what word am I trying to say? The sponge is covered with an even amount of paint, and there's not one particular area of the sponge that's particularly goopy and very heavy with the paint. So then I'm grabbing a third stencil and a bit of a hot, it's like a fluoro red paint. I picked this up at I think it was Hot Dollar here in Australia, and it's a really nice paint to use. I haven't used it very frequently, but it's after you doing these tapes, I definitely want to use it again because it kind of popped out a lot from the blue. So when I was putting down my base colors, I tried to make sure that I chose light colors. So I probably wouldn't use black or dark purple, dark green, navy. I would stick to lighter colors, and then over the top I think white is a really effective color to stamp with, or like I did here, the bubble wrap painting with, because it just gives a bit of freshness, I guess you could say, to the tape. So then I'm grabbing some stamps, and I've got that wooden number stamp that I've had in my stash for ages. I've got this map that I've wanted to use, but I don't know, it's one that I don't usually reach for, but I kind of wish that I did. And then this was I think it used to be a wooden stamp, and it fell off the wood, but I just kept it anyway because I can still just use it with my hand and kind of smush it down a little bit. And I really do think black and white are your best friend when it comes to something like this. It can completely change the tape and just make things really pop. So then I've got a text, and I'm trying to make it so that every paint blob of the original background, so I think it was pastel pink, light blue and powder blue, they were the three colors I used, every piece of paint has at least one or two extra details on top of it, so there's no just empty blobs of paint. And here, once I get it all organized in my hand, here is the result. I freaking love it. It's something that I definitely want to do again. However, I am going to have to invest in slightly better masking tape because, yeah, that one just did not work. So then I've got my photos, and I decided to pair with black and white. And I also decided to use my gelatos today. Now, I will heavily admit, my gelatos are probably my most neglected art supply. I used to love them, and then I got some watercolors, and I got my distress mists, and I don't know, I think with all art supplies we kind of go in phases where we really love something and then we find something else and really enjoy using that, and things get put on the back burner, and that's okay. I think it's perfectly fine to sometimes neglect things in your craft room, but it's nice to pull them out every now and then and check if you still enjoy them. And I will be honest, I'm not enjoying gelatos. I don't know what it is. I'm just not having fun with them. So I'm going to give them another chance in a little while. Maybe in a few weeks, I'll try and do some more projects again with them, see what I can come up with. But at the moment, they're not on my fave art supplies. It also does help to have a clean paintbrush. And I will say my paintbrush wasn't exactly 100% clean when I was doing this. So that also didn't help to the way that I was feeling about the gelatos, particularly with that lilac colour at the top. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to do a really soft background on my basil marshmallow cardstock, and I was going to do the packaging technique, but I kind of waited too long to do that, and it didn't quite work. So then I got a baby wipe or a paper towel, and I was trying to smush everything around a bit, and I was going to completely turf this background. But then I thought, hang on, while we're in the realm of neglected art supplies, let's pull out another one that I've neglected and don't feel comfortable with, and that's my mermaid markers. There's something just about them that I've struggled with a little bit, and so I thought I'll give them a go. I picked out some blues and purples and kind of a pinky tone, and I tried to colour on the background, but it was just too much. And so then I decided instead to use them for splat value instead of adding colour. And I'm glad that I didn't make the background too intense, because the tape that I put over the top is it's quite bright. Even though they're the same colours as the background, it's very, very bright. And it was nice in the end. The failure worked out, that the softness of the background did actually work well for the tape. So I've sped this bit up very, very fast so that you didn't have to watch 10 minutes of me sticking down these bits of tape. But essentially what I did is, off camera, I put double-sided tape on the back of all of these because they had completely lost any sort of adhesiveness that they once had. You kind of have to have a little try with whatever masking tape you do use. You may have a bit more success with keeping some of the stickiness with your branded tape. However, I would suggest adding a little bit of adhesive if you can, even if it's just a glue stick, just something to give it a little bit of extra stick. So I'm going through, and I wanted to do it a little bit haphazardly so that it wasn't very blocky, and in the end you don't see a lot of the background, but you can tell, especially off camera, that it is definitely there. So popping it down, and they are the same photo. I've been really enjoying doing probably the last year, I'd say, scrapping where I have one photo and then either a smaller version of the photo or a black and white or color version of the same photo. It's just been something that is a bit different and I've been enjoying it. Let me know in the comments if you have scrapped or if you enjoy scrapping the same photo twice on one layout. It's a bit of something different, and I don't know, I'm liking it. It's like I said, it's a phase. We all go through different phases, and I'm in the double photo, no gelato phase of my scrapbooking. These tapes are really good though. You could easily add them to a card. I think they would make a really, really fun card design if you did some sort of mixed media background on a card base and then put a couple of pieces of tape in the center with a sentiment on it. I think that would be really fun. Or in your art journal, you could just use it as you normally would washi tape. But it was a fun activity to do, and it's made me want to make all of the tapes. They are a little difficult to store, so I don't know if I would make too many of them in advance. I think they're the type of thing that I would make the day that I was going to use them, and then I did have a couple of leftover pieces afterwards. You can see just off to the right hand side there, and I left them on my desk, so I think I used them up that day. I think that afternoon I might have made a journal page possibly, and because they were right on my desk, I was able to use them straight away. So I'm going with some layering papers here, and I'm just doing, because the tape is so blocky, I think that's the best way to describe it. I wanted to make sure that at least one of my layers behind my photo had a torn edge to it. I just think that it's nice to contrast the blockiness, the straight edges and the corners with something that's a bit more, I hate this word, but organic, a little bit rough and not as structured. So then I added a bunch of tape to this. I added so much tape. Well, you guys know I use a lot of tape anyway, but I added extra lots of tape because the masking tape that I bought, I don't know what brand it is, but I'm not going to buy it again. It was a very rough masking tape. Masking tape already has a bit of a texture to it, but this one wasn't good. It was very lumpy and bumpy, and so I felt like my photo and all of the paper layers just needed a bit of extra support. So then for my second little photo, I'm just popping some tissue paper behind it, and I quite like to do that when I am scrapping two of the same photos on the same page. Have one of the photos more of the focus with most of the paper layers, and if I'm using coloured layers, most of the coloured pieces of paper behind it, and then the other one to just be a little bit more subdued and a little bit more simple. That camera was from, I think it was from a crepe paper truffle collection, and then I'm trying desperately to use up some of my thickers. I think the challenge yourself for next month is a couple of layouts that I made using leftover thickers, or is that the month after? I know I filmed one for either April or May that's leftover thickers, and because they're just hanging around. Does anyone else have the same issue with thickers? I feel like they multiply themselves, and especially thickers that aren't very neutral. So I would call a neutral font just like a simple, not fancy black or white or gold. Let's be real, gold is a neutral for me. So anything that's not in that category, I abandon completely, but especially multicolored ones like that. The one that I used color, I think that's an old, could be Amy Tan or crepe paper one, and I used it a couple of times and then I became sick of it and I didn't want to use it anymore. So I'm really trying to use them up, and if I can't use them for actual titles, you'll see in this challenge yourself video coming up soon that they can be handy for other things, not just for titles. It's a bit of Heidi Shine, shake, 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 shake your Heidi Shine, shake your Heidi Shine. I do feel weird singing the Shake Your Heidi Shine song while I'm not actually shaking it. but you know, I'm shaking it in spirit. I wanted to keep that same, it's a real kind of triangle layout, this one. You can see the bottom half of the page is very, very heavy with a, now is that a right, I think it's a right angled triangle. It's not an isosceles, going back to my high school maths knowledge. It's a bit blurry, but I wanted to just do something to that top left hand corner to balance it out. So I did a diddly border, and I think this, having the splatters in that top left hand corner do kind of balance out the weight of the page a little bit. And the page is done. So I hope you enjoyed this, something a little bit different, a really easy, I'm going to categorize it as a DIY embellishment, a really easy activity. It'd be great to also do with, if you've got kids and you want to craft along with them, they can make their own tape and use it for different projects. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye.